When I was growing up in America, I was sold the American dream. And the older I get, the less that dream seems to actually come into fruition in reality. And no, it's not because I'm sitting around my mommy's house just waiting for my special moment. I personally tried multiple jobs, some respected and some not so much. But at the end of the day, despite what I was doing for a living, the ends were barely ever met, and the thought of next year was never so promising. Which these thoughts I just stated are all too common amongst the young adults today in the modern times, leading to the rise of a carefree society where nothing really matters. I mean, don't get me wrong, people still love to complain, but nobody ever really wants to get anything done. With people sleeping on the streets and companies pretty much buying up all the homes, more than families that is, and debt being more normalized than savings, well, let's talk about that messed up shit. And if you personally feel like you relate to anything discussed in this video, or just simply like topics discussing stuff like this, feel free to like, comment your thoughts and opinions below, and subscribe to see my daily uploads around here discussing topics just like this. And I always like to start these videos out by giving a huge shout out to all my channel supporters, my Patreon supporters, and everybody who checks out those links down below in the description. Those are some of the best ways to support me and the content around here. Now, let's begin today's shit show, shall we?
Working class people thinking they're going to become billionaires is like a peasant thinking he's going to become king. Except the peasant knows he's not going to become king because he wasn't born into it. And so I'm going to hold your hand when I say this to you.
Now, what I find so interesting about this video is this pretty much just touches base with the exact definition of what the American dream is sought after to be. Being a young, starting off fresh with $0 in your bank account, to work your way up throughout the years and climb up the corporate ladder, or any sort of ladder, to a point where you have zeros on zeros on zeros and commas on commas and commas in your bank account. And that's where all the respect really comes from here in America. And it's really funny how scarily the comparison actually kind of is once you put it into perspective for us there. And it's kind of hard to really, represent how it is possible for, the young, poor man or woman or whatever to get there over time. But it's, unless you're really born into it, or you have connections, or you kind of like work your ass off to the point where you're almost might never make it, it definitely is not so possible for the average person, and it's never going to happen for the average person. And I definitely think in America, we always love to talk about the survivor bias, where it's like the people who do make it, we only look at them, and then we ignore the majority of people who never end up getting even anywhere close, which is the majority of folks. And I think that's why a lot of people can definitely relate to a lot of these videos, and there's so many videos of people talking about stuff like this, because this is the common sentiment. But no one makes a movie about, the average person who has the average life where everything goes wrong for them. Or if you do, it's over-exaggerated to a point where it's so unrealistic, where it's entertaining. Because the average life is not entertaining, it's just average.
I don't know how I'm going to retire. Just thinking about this. I don't know how everybody's going to retire. I think it's like the average American has like $55,000 in their bank account or something like that by the time they retire. And everybody's drawing Social Security, but that shit's going to be gone. Like, how are we going to retire? We're just going to work till we're like 70 and 80. Maybe the medicine will keep up and get so good that we'll just be able-bodied and be able to just work and work and work. I don't know. I'd love to hear. How do people plan to retire?
The also fond tall tale of retirement, or the scary thought of it these days, because most people don't really have any thought of it at all. And if they do, it just gives them goosebumps, because there really is no plan in sight. And any plan that is kind of set up today is kind of getting pushed out the window slowly but surely. I mean, the whole Social Security thing, the age is getting pushed up for the whole retirement age and that, and the pool for the funds of that might be getting shrinking and shrinking until there's no pool at all to, leak funds out of for everybody. And at the same time, there is the whole idea of having like your own capital investments, getting the interest off your assets and yada yada yada. But when most people can barely even make ends meet, and with inflation becoming higher than the wage increases in most places, in the whole cost of living situation, the cost of living crisis that we ever so touch on here on this channel and here on this page, it seems as if you can't really build up any backing or any extra money. Where is anything to get interest off of? And so that means there really is no interest, and so there really is no retirement. Now, I plan to have multiple online, revenue streams. Hopefully I can get those off the ground and have them sustainable enough where you can make that happen. But even with, the whole TikTok ban and the whole censorship online and the changing of the algorithms nonstop every few months, if not so most definitely every few years, a lot of these sorts of things aren't even that solid or secure either. Most YouTubers or most online entertainers, they know they only have a few years, if not 5 to 10 tops, to really get their money and then hop out, or, somehow make that twist their career to do things they can do, whether that's Cameo or meet and greets or tours, whatever they can do depending on what you do. But definitely is a crazy thought. What is your plans for retirement, and do you have any plans at all? Because I feel like many folks, especially Gen Z millennials, don't really put too much thought into that, or if they do, it's not a fun thing to talk about.
$1 billion, and people are pulling up mattresses and living on the sidewalks in Los Angeles, California. Where did the $30 billion go that was supposed to help these people?
Oof, taxpayer dollars. That's a rough topic. But, the people out here that are living in the mattresses, in the streets, in these cardboard, tents, they really want to paint these people out as, these crazy druggies who just never had a get going from life, or they just don't have, gears in their head turning around. A lot of these people were people who tried out the American dream and it didn't really work out for them. And instead of labeling them that way, they never actually take any sort of credit for what ends up being a lot of people who try to go down this route that they were promised would end up being somewhere. When there is no retirement, when there is no promise of shelter or safety or backing in the future, when you don't have the means to work your ass off till the end of your death days, till the death door's knocking or whatever they say, this is the reality for what a lot of us might end up. This is actually the future for many folks. And I've actually had many people in my life, even a lot of people in the comments, talk about where Box is a plan for their retirement. It might not be plan A or plan B, but it's definitely a plan C, because it is a reality of what you see around you, and it's very easy now to relate to. That could be me. Like I was talking to my buddy yesterday, most people are only 2-3 months away from losing just about everything they have. So really, it doesn't take that far off for many of us to get to a position or a place like a lot of people who are in positions just like this. I mean, there is a stat that shows that the average American, over half of Americans, couldn't even afford a $500 expense. So there definitely is, like I was saying earlier in this video, some sort of a survivorship bias here in the U.S., and that never gets broadcasted because who wants to broadcast the best country in the world in a bad light? And there definitely is many places that are worse off in the U.S. We definitely are a first world country, and I'm very blessed to be born here. But I don't think that disregards any of the negative notions that go on here in the States.
I'm gonna try not to cry while I tell y'all this. It's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay to call things like they are. I left my job not because I didn't like it. I left my job, but I left my job because I was being targeted and bullied, and I finally left, and there were so many people that told me, like, why did you do that? Like, you're not gonna be able to get anything. They're not gonna help you. Y'all, my unemployment claim, it got approved, and I got more than I was looking for. Stand up for yourself.
Now, this video got a little bit emotional, I think, for all of us, especially if you can relate in any sort of way, because what he's claiming right here is a very relatable topic to many people. I found myself having to rely on government assistance when the pandemic hit, and, everybody was laid off from their jobs in the restaurant industry. I was, like I'm talking about, I did fast food and any sort of food type related fry cook positions for the majority of my resumes, and I got laid off around the pandemic time. So I was relying on the extra $600 a month, the extra $600 a week plus whatever, the $200 I got from my shitty job I had at the time. And so I was living okay for, the few months that, all those like pandemic checks were hidden and stuff. But that was a lot more safe because pretty much everybody got approved around that time. The realistic way that the unemployment offices really work is you have to get approved for all this stuff, whether that's food stamps or whatever type of benefits you're trying to get once you get laid off. And you have to get approved, and you don't really know how much money you're going to get, if it's even going to be enough for you to live off of. Which is funny, because this same system that you pay in so much, and you really don't get much of a choice of how much you pay in. You really just have to do what you're told. And then you're never really promised any return back. I mean, especially when, like, you're the one feeding the system and funding the system. You are the one on the cycle, keeping the gears turning, and then when you aren't able to keep the gears turning, you can't always rely on other people to keep it turning for you. It's not always the case, unfortunately. It should be a stamped-in policy that would never be that much of a problem. I do understand why there's hurdles to jump through, because people try to abuse these systems, and the bad fish ruin it for pretty much everybody. But at the same time, it definitely is a sad reality where people who genuinely get in these positions, they get screwed over because of things like this. And this is the raw emotion, I definitely do applaud this man for sharing his open and honest truth that, like I was saying, many people can relate to, including myself.
Someone pointed out that rich people used to genuinely be terrified of the poor. Like, the thought of the workers striking or protesting or doing anything was terrifying to them, so they didn't flaunt their wealth. But with influencer culture, it's almost like the inverse. Like, they can flaunt all they want because we're sitting here acting like we're going to get even breadcrumbs of what they have.
Now, this video can be somewhat controversial, or at least the idea of it, or at least what the video she was just talking about, that whole idea. But I definitely do like to point out the fact that, the idea of wage slavery, I don't like that term slavery, because the type of slavery, the definition for all that, they taught us how that was realistically, sought out, or was sought after. I don't know what I was saying. Sorry, I made up my word. It's not really the same thing as we're talking about in terms of wage slavery, but in terms of the definition, they would keep you underfed, and they keep you just enough, they would give you just enough to keep going and continue the system running. And it's almost like, at least in America, like the majority of people, they'll give you just enough to keep the system running, and then they'll put these little, traps and holes and little, these little, hurdles in your way to always keep you in the trap, whether that's debt or inflation or something always coming up, whether that's your car hidden or your, landlord, you have some sort of debacle with that. There's always something. And there's all these, there's a car alarm going off, whatever. With all these different things, you really always have something going on. So it's almost like they're keeping you in the same rotating cycle of you're never able to get ahead. And then with everybody in this trap, we're all so focused, our minds are so cluttered on everything else at hand, that how can we even focus on fixing the actual reality of everything? And even with that, can you imagine actually getting everybody on the same page of anything? Good luck with that. Well, if you personally feel like you're related to anything discussed in today's video, or do you simply like topics or videos discussing topics like this, feel free to comment your thoughts, opinions below, and subscribe to see my daily uploads around here discussing topics just like this. And I would love to hear all your guys' thoughts and opinions regarding anything we discussed in today's video down below in the comments. I do always love to read those and check those out, and I do reply to the ones I see fit. And I do want to give a huge shout out to all the people who check out my channel memberships, my Patreon memberships, and all the links down in the description. Like I always like to say, those are the best ways to support me and my content around here. And I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. I'll catch you later. Bye.